Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review the show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, William Lou. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong, who I ran into on my way in from work. Was just down at OVO practice facility where the Raptors are hard at work preparing for the play-in tournament that they are in. For one, if not two games, hopefully two games. And, all on the way. Got some momos from Logo's Corner, the best spot in the city if you want to get food for $8 in Parkdale. Everyone knows Logo's Corner. What's going on, Alex? How you doing, man?
Happy Easter Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, how was practice, man? They building good habits for Wednesday?
Obviously.
This is the time?
Yeah. They're all hunky-dory down there. They're all just like, let's work on how do we stop the Bulls. I mean, look, listen, there was Fred spoke, OG spoke, Nick Nurse spoke, and the conversations were fairly similar. It's a little bit strange sort of teeing up just one game to this degree. It's not like a playoff series where you can sort of like feel the matchups evolve or sort of adapt game to game. Like there was just so much conversation around like how do you limit DeMar's touches, right? And so Fred talked about it. OG definitely talked about it. Talked about sort of DeMar as a friend, as a person, stuff like that. He expects DeMar to be more aggressive. I think OG held DeMar to, I think, only like 20-some-odd field goal attempts in the three games they matched up with each other, which is really good. Obviously, DeMar's liable to do that in just one game. And then, and then Nick Nurse kind of probably gave the most insightful answer of the day, where he's sort of talking about his philosophy when it comes to sort of like gambling for quote-unquote gambling for steals, not just obviously going for every single steal, but the value that you get when you win those gambles compared to sort of the cost that comes along with it. So there was kind of a philosophical debate that he sort of had with himself, and he kind of concluded that he likes the way the Raptors play in the aggressive nature, which leans more towards gambling. But ultimately, it was kind of like a regular practice. I don't know. It's weird. It feels like game 83 more than it feels like a game 7 coming up.
Yeah, I know. So Nick didn't say he was going to reevaluate his future after Wednesday? Nobody there asked him about it.
Okay. But, as he said, I mean, he did state for the record where he was, so that we wouldn't have to ask him about it.
Oh, that's correct. So we're here, man. Raptors finished their regular season. 41-41. Nice win over the Milwaukee Bucks yesterday. I wouldn't know. Thanasis played 28 minutes.
Oh, we're really doing this, right?
Did you get your fill of Thanasis yesterday?
So you were in the booth with me yesterday, and I kept trying to soft launch the nickname Thanasty.
Which is, I gotta give it to you. It's pretty good.
Thanasty?
I just don't like. Does he deserve a nickname? Yeah. We should poll anonymous executives around the league if Thanasis deserves a nickname.
No, poll them if they like Thanasty, because
I like that one.
He's just a chaotic player because there's like some basics of the game that like he's not great at, but at the same time he still has some ability to play. Like he did put Chris Boucher on a poster, which was regrettable for Chris, but then again Chris put Goran Dragic on a poster later in the game. So
okay.
I think it's all fair and even. No, I think for the most part I just appreciated that the Raptors came out and gave a professional effort. Like the way you could have lost that game, it wouldn't have mattered in the standings, all that kind of stuff. To be honest, it probably would have benefited them in terms of like the lottery odds, I think.
Oh, that's right. Because regardless of how they do in the play-in tournament, the lottery odds are based on your record in the regular season.
Yes, which already has concluded. Again, this play-in tournament is sort of just like out in the ether. It's not. It's not in anything.
Any
really.
stats that take place on Wednesday or Friday just don't exist, right?
Right. Yeah. So nobody should be playing for stats in this one.
Oh God, I might gotta take the Raptors then. All
right. But no, it was. Yeah, I was actually surprised like the number of guys who ended up playing. Like Yak ended up playing 2.5 quarters. Scotty played 2.5 quarters. But it was good to see some of the young guys get some run. You don't really even know if you'll see some of those guys again. So at least they get one game to show off. Goran Dragic was there. We still booed him.
Right. The fans had something to do yesterday.
No, it was a chill afternoon, and then afterwards I left the arena around 4:15, and I just kind of like took a scooter ride all along the lakefront. It was very beautiful.
That's great, man. Canadian Lindell Wingington also played 27 minutes. That's about all I have for yesterday's game.
Give me your thoughts on Lindell Wingington.
Anyways, you talk about professional effort. Yeah. Can we go back to Friday when the Raptors still had an outside chance for the 8th seed.
Which, by the way, if the Raptors had won one of the two games in Boston, they would have actually jumped Atlanta.
Yes, because they finished with the same record.
Yes.
Atlanta lost yesterday to Boston.
So the fact that the Raptors have to win two games to make it to the playoffs proper rather than just one game out of two opportunities is actually because they lost that stupid game to Atlanta.
Or how about because they lost on Friday?
Or, yeah, you're right. Okay, Friday.
And losing that first quarter.
Wednesday as well.
34-16. They trailed by 36 points at one point, and they allowed the Celtics to become the first team in the shot clock era to shoot 100% on 2-pointers in a single half. And this is one Friday after they allowed the Sixers to shoot 77% in the first half. So while I appreciate the professional effort yesterday against the Nasty and the Bucks, Friday was a bit concerning for me.
It was very concerning.
We call it the janky defense.
There was no defense. The defense was just janky, period. It's one of those games where you rarely see it, but the one team has to call the first 3 timeouts.
This is from the head coach who will not call timeout even if you are Will Barton with a sprained ankle.
He's like, Will, man, just take a foul if you want.
Just
will
through it. Will through it.
Because the Raptors took timeout 12-2 after they were down.
Yep.
They took timeout 24-7 after they remained down, and then they took timeout 50-22.
I know you referenced this on the React Pod, but what do you think a head coach can even say by that third timeout? What do you even say? Seriously though.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agree.
What do you say?
Well,
and it's game 81.
I do feel like we talked about this all of last week about Nick's comments and all that kind of stuff. I really don't want to get through it. It's so boring, right? But I do think that doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in those timeout scenarios where it's like, okay, guys, I know we're really, really in a hole here, and we're probably not going to win this game, but can we play for a little bit of pride?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess that's all you can really say. But no, I'm sure that could have took a lot of players by surprise and didn't really help the scenarios. Again, like you mentioned, they had that very big no-show against the Sixers in that first half. At least they fought back in the second half, which, sure, I guess, but hard not to fight back when the other team scores 77% shooting.
You can only
points.
go up from there.
Yeah, the other team's probably just going to chill a little bit. You're going to come back a little bit, and of course, you're not going to complete the comeback. And in this game, it was just straight embarrassing. I mean, Sam Hauser even said after the game, I haven't dunked this much since high school.
Right, he had a career high.
It was just cutting back door. He would just get wide open dunks. And I just felt like in that game, it was just like, man, the two systems that these two teams play is just completely different. Obviously, the systems are partially dependent on the rosters themselves. And obviously, the Celtics have tons of good three-point shooters. But even the way that they move the ball, the way that they make smart decisions, the way that they help each other on defense, the way that they don't over-help each other on defense, all of it just makes a lot of sense. The Celtics don't make that many mistakes, even with their second unit coming in. They still play very solid basketball. They force you to beat them by making plays, by making shots. They don't just beat themselves. And you looked at the results. It was one team that was very determined to beat themselves with, it was silly watching the start of that game. Scotty would go one-on-one and miss. Then Pascal would go one-on-one, then miss. Then Fred would go one-on-one and miss. And then OG would go one-on-one and get blocked. And it was just like, wow, okay, coming off the bench, Gary, same approach. Chris Boucher, same approach. And it was Precious, same approach. And it's like, what are we even doing, right? So, even though there is a talent disparity on paper just between the two lineups, I think that even more than anything else, even just the system the Raptors were playing in that game or the discipline or the lack thereof was a large portion of why they lost, in addition to the fact that the Celtics are straight up much better than them. But, yeah, it was not impressive. And thankfully, because the Raptors lost those two games, the Raptors cannot face the Celtics in the play-in or the playoffs.
I'm not even thinking past
the highest we can
Wednesday,
get to is 8 now, which is against Milwaukee, who's probably going to do something very similar to the Raptors. But, hey, listen.
Yeah, I repeat, man, the Celtics did not miss a 2-point field goal in the first half.
Yep.
I don't know. I cannot stress that enough. Very alarming performance. And I think it's alarming for me when you look at this team and, the hallmark of a team that I think is really struggling is when guys after these losses and games are just kind of at a loss for words. And, Fred after the game was just, he said, quote, I don't really see any other path forward other than everybody staying together. That's really alarming to me too, man. Because
emotional damage.
That's honestly what that game was for me, man.
We've been talking about this effort, energy, all this stuff. And we're still talking about it heading to game 83. That's very concerning for me. That's all.
Well, I mean, at least the Raptors didn't punch each other in a timeout.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that very soon.
No, I just mean like
this is a bad week of PR for the play-in tournament.
wow, we had the
weekend
Mavs like intentionally tanking their way out.
We'll get to that too. They're under FBI investigation at the moment for potentially tanking.
The tanking situation is being monitored.
No, I was talking to our colleague JD Bunkus, on his show, earlier today, and I'm gonna ask you this because he asked me this. He's like,
okay.
Is there still anything at stake for you when you're looking at the Raptors this week? Like based on everything that you've seen from them in the regular season, all the stuff that we've talked about, is there something that can be salvaged based on what you're going to see on Wednesday and potentially Friday?
I wouldn't say salvaged. Like I actually don't think there's a winning scenario that really comes out of all of this. But I mean, I think for me, it is kind of just like gravy in a way.
Okay.
It's gravy, but you didn't actually get served the meal.
Oh God,
so
it's just gravy.
You're just getting the gravy.
It's like the hash browns that we had yesterday at the arena.
Yeah, it's just
without
raw.
any ketchup.
Just
we just had a potato party.
Yeah, exactly. It's just gravy, like not the actual meal. But
okay, so this week would be the gravy.
No, because I don't think it changed anything about the season, right? Like I don't think it's a scenario where it's like, okay, we wipe the slate clean. We all sort of lock in here, and we ideally make it through the play-in tournament, secure the 8th seed. And then, get into a tough series against Milwaukee, which, by the way, in that series, Milwaukee will be coming off of 1 full week of rest, if not more. Like a guy like Giannis, he didn't even make the trip to Toronto over the weekend.
I believe he sat down for a Bleacher Report exclusive interview. What is up with these guys doing interviews before games now? Joel Embiid did this a few weeks ago. Against Denver.
It's when they're free and available, and that's when the reporters are in the building too. It makes sense. By the way, shouts to Giannis. I really like the interview that he did with Chris Haynes. I like that he was like, why should I beg for something that I believe is mine?
He was talking about the MVP, right?
Yeah, that was hard. I like that. I like that line from Giannis. Although that's way too late to campaign. The votes are pretty much already in. Yeah. But regardless, I got like Giannis. I don't know if he played last Friday, but he definitely didn't play Sunday. He didn't even make the trip to Toronto. Yeah. He's going to get to be home in Milwaukee for like more than a week straight.
Yeah, him and Thanasty are just chilling. Like, they're just chilling. We're going to make Thanasty work.
Yeah, you know what? Thanasty's not a bad nickname, right? I'm not
This is the only reason why I want the Raps to get to the first round now.
We might
so we can do the Thanasty report after every game.
Well, here's the thing. Depending on how it goes, games 1 and 2 are pretty much already a write-off if the Raptors get to that point.
No, sorry, this is so funny.
No,
man.
because they've had over a week off. Like all the veterans are gonna have the week off, and the Raptors would have had to play 2 pretty intense games.
So the Raps would be playing on Wednesday, Friday, and then they'll fly to Milwaukee on Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it would start.
So they would have 1 day of rest, and that 1 day would actually be a travel day. Not that it's like so much of a trip to go to Milwaukee. Yeah. So games 1 and 2, they're already a write-off. I mean, even games 1 and 2 when the Raptors played them, in the championship.
Right, they were coming off 1 day rest after the Kawhi shot.
Exactly, and they lost both of those. The opportunity there is you have to essentially take 1, if not both, of 3 and 4. And again, this is looking really ahead of the schedule. But my point is just like, this is why like it's just gravy, because there actually is like the payoff itself is quite low. However, I think the idea of it is not necessarily to sort of make it as deep into the playoffs as possible, but even just to see like how these players react to these moments. Like I think there's a different level of preparation that comes with preparing for the playoffs. And you hear about it from a lot of players who have won championships. They talk about sort of the different levels of practice and sort of the attention to detail and sort of how much everything is really at stake and all the details really matter. It's much more of a half-court game. Like, those are valuable experiences for younger guys. And really, when you think about younger guys, you're really just talking about Scotty. Like, this whole thing essentially is an exercise for him of like, okay, look, we know we're not going to win the championship this year, but ideally we get there. So you get to see like how serious you got to take something like this. And hopefully you keep that experience moving forward.
All right.
Again, so it's just gravy.
Yeah, you still got to work a bit more to get me excited for Wednesday's game.
I'm not trying to, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. But for Raptors fans, the MLSE did announce that there's going to be a Jurassic Park for the play-in on Wednesday, and also
I saw them putting up the park yesterday when I went to the arena at 11 a.m.
No, you should have reported this.
I mean, what's there to report? There's always going to
be a park.
There's always going to be Jurassic Park. Plus, like, it's not just that. I mean, the Leafs also use it as well. So,
oh, that's right. It is shared. They should just play the game in Jurassic Park with a DJ in the back. Outdoor play-in game.
I feel like the Raptors might actually win a game like that because all we do is go to the hoop.
The outside.
You know what I mean? When you talk about prison ball, like,
oh god,
pretty ideal.
Yeah, that's about it, man. I know we got Steph from the Sporting News coming up in the second segment. You guys are going to talk a little bit more Bulls Raptors. I will say, since this current play-in format, so after the bubble, this is the third year now.
Yep.
The 10th seed are 0-4 under this format. So Raptors have a chance to make history. Yeah.
How many times has the 10th seed been like Indiana or like Charlotte?
Charlotte was once.
Charlotte,
I think Washington was a 10th seed.
Right. That was the Westbrook Beal Washington Wizards.
Yeah. So I think we got. Yeah, I'm trying to. San Antonio was a 10th seed. Memphis beat them.
Right.
Yeah,
that was DeMar. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways,
I mean, yeah. Okay. I do feel like, especially with the game at home, like I do feel like the Raptors should be able to take it against the 10th seed. But again, we'll talk about the other side of the break.
Yeah,
how
for
the
sure.
Raptors match up with Chicago.
Because I know you're a big fan of Game 82s and big fan of the final weekend of the regular season.
Yeah.
And, on Friday when we were here talking about how, the Mavs were putting Kyrie and like 4 other guys in their rotation on the injury report, I just felt like it was going to be a funny weekend. And I did start tracking like all the funny stuff that did happen, including the Wizards putting out a graphic for their game against Miami where the key matchup was Corey Kispert versus Caleb Martin. That was their key matchup.
See, here's the thing. These social campaigns are decided like well in advance, right? Like someone at the outside of the season, probably in like August or September, had a meeting about this, and they're like, "Okay, here's our social strategy for the year, right? Before every game, we're going to tweet it out. It's going to have a sponsorship attachment to it, and essentially, it's like that key graphic's probably going to have an ad on it, and it's an ad vehicle, and we're going to do it for all 82 games. And it sounds good on paper until you get to game 82, and you're like, "Damn, I really got to put Corey Kispert in and Caleb Martin on a poster." So
we gotta put the Bradley Beal Jimmy Butler graphic away.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so the Mavs, they played Luka Doncic for 1 quarter on Friday.
By the way, it was Slovenian Heritage Night.
Yes, this is what I was going to say. It was Slovenian Heritage Night. And I think that's maybe the only reason why Luka played. And, they ended up losing. And my favorite stat, this is from, so they ended up losing. They had a chance to tie at the end. And the Mavericks are the first team in the last 10 seasons to fail to hit the rim on 3 3-point attempts inside the final 15 seconds of the game. So they got blocked on a 3, they airballed a 3, and then they hit the backboard on a 3 at the end of the game. First of all, whoever's tracking these stats respects.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so then after the game, because clearly the
Raptors haven't done that? I'm kidding. Don't worry, we hit the rim.
So after the game, the NBA the next day announced that they've commenced an investigation into the facts and circumstances surrounding Dallas's roster decisions and game conduct, including the motivations behind those actions. What do you think about this investigation that is underway here? I
mean, look, obviously the NBA is going to selectively do this, right? Because you could have easily investigated the fact that Portland has been playing Jonathan Williams for like a month
and
straight.
And Skylar Mays.
Like, yeah, exactly, right? So it's selective. However, Jason Kidd coming out after game and being like, "Yeah, we were told to do this by management," is just like,
no. This is the thing. They're being punished. They're being punished for being too obvious. Right? Like this is like straight up just it's obvious.
It's the same thing with the Nick interviews. Not to go back to this all the time, but like the rumors could have been out there. We could have had the same critiques without him saying it. It wouldn't have been the same reaction.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you just say it, it really does like invite everything to come in. So
I think
the Mavs are not the only team to tank, but I mean, of course, they were also in position to maybe do something in the play-in series. I don't know. It wasn't like they were eliminated. Once you're eliminated, you can pretty much rest whoever you want, and that's fair. But like, yeah, I mean,
well, I think this is a problem too. This is what the league has a problem with because the play-in tournament was supposed to be like to deter some of the tanking, right? To give teams a chance to play for these spots. And the Mavs basically just like spit in the face of that concept. Yeah. Like we have a spot to play for, but we're not going to go for it.
And plus, I think in the case of the Mavs, in regards to the league, like we're talking about 2 marquee stars on the team. And obviously it hasn't worked out in Dallas, right? But like I think the league would still ideally like for them to get into these positions.
Yeah.
Like Kyrie and Luka are huge draws. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty hilarious. I thought when you said you had a favorite stat, I thought you were going to say that Luka, who only played the first quarter, still had more points than anyone else who played the whole game.
No, tell me that's not true.
I think he had like 13 in the first.
Tell me that's not true.
Yeah, man. I think I saw that on one of
They should have been suspended for drawing up a game-tying 3 for our guy Theo Pinson, man.
Oh, really?
Like, how obvious can you get?
That's nasty, by the way.
No, how obvious can you get, man?
Yeah, that's tough.
Anyways, another team that was fighting for a play-in spot.
Literally.
The Minnesota Timberwolves. So I don't even know how to break this down. So yesterday in the first half of a must-win game against New Orleans, because they were fighting for the seeding between the 8 and the 9, Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson of Chinese descent,
Yo,
got into a
API
verbal argument that turned into a physical encounter. And according to Woj, the disagreement started when Kyle Anderson told Gobert to go block some shots. And then Gobert told him to go grab a rebound. And then Kyle Anderson told him to shut the F up. And that's when Gobert, lunged at Kyle Anderson with a punch. And if you watch the video, pay attention to Taurean Prince. I think he's been waiting all season to shove Gobert. He got right into the middle of it and like shoved Gobert basically all the way to the back. Teammates stepped in, all of that. So Gobert was sent home. And then at halftime, Jaden McDaniels, who's a contender for Defensive Player of the Year, punched the wall on his way to the locker room and fractured his hand. So he's out for the season. And then Kyle Anderson and Rudy Gobert apparently continued to argue in the locker room. And Anderson threatened to knock Gobert out. And we just received news before we came on air that the Timberwolves have suspended Rudy Gobert for tomorrow's play-in game between Minnesota and the Lakers.
That's actually respects to Minnesota for doing that. You can definitely tell. I mean, if it wasn't clear already, like it must be everyone in that room hates Rudy.
I despise that dude.
Bro, it definitely is that situation because again, you would definitely like consult with the players and see what their interactions are, and this is not a light decision. Like this is a 1-game play-in for the now. Of course, they're I think in the 7-8, so they have another chance.
Yeah,
but ultimately, it's like, man, this is ultimately why you would bring in a guy like Gobert. Obviously, they've invested
give up
a lot
5
into
picks.
it. Yeah, Walker Kessler and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
and it's like you bring him in so that in these important moments you have him. But of course, he really snapped. I just don't understand like what was going on. Like this must be something simmering in that room for a while.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
My thing with Rudy Gobert,
also,
I think
it feels like Rudy Gobert is like the least liked player in the league. Like it feels like
I hate this guy.
It's like him and Dylan Brooks should be on the same team. Like they need to be on the same team. So people can fight them every week.
I really think it's not anything deeper. Like Rudy's just an annoying dude. I think he just gets under people's skin with the way he just like carries himself.
Yeah.
And talks. And it seems like in Utah and now in Minnesota. And it's so funny because Wolves beat writer Christopher Hine was actually working on a story about Kyle Anderson's leadership. So he talked to Gobert on Saturday. And Gobert said this about Kyle Anderson. He said, quote, Kyle wants to win. And sometimes he's a little aggressive in the way he talks, but I don't take it personally.
Right.
I receive it in a positive way because it comes from a place of wanting me to be the best Rudy. And then that happened on Sunday. And then Rudy Gobert last night apparently apologized to the group chat. The Timberwolves group chat. That must have been left on red. That must have been left on red, man. And then he also tweeted, quote, emotions got the best of me today.
Yeah.
I should not have reacted the way I did, regardless of what was said. I want to apologize to the fans, the organization, particularly to Kyle, who is someone that I truly love and respect as a teammate. So after he fulfilled this whole checklist, Tim Connolly still said, you're still suspended. He's like, you tried? But the group chat has spoken.
Yeah.
I don't have his number.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. No, here's the thing. I think Rudy was playing through a back injury, so this probably influenced it. But he only had 2 points in the game and 3 rebounds.
Okay.
He didn't have a block.
Okay.
Kyle Anderson did.
That's why Kyle Anderson's like, go block some shots.
Kyle Anderson's like, I had 2 blocks.
Who says that to a teammate?
Anthony Edwards had 4 blocks.
No, hold on.
By the way, some incredible ones down the stretch too.
Yeah, we buried the lead actually.
Yeah,
the Wolves actually won that game.
Oh yeah.
So the Wolves
the tournament was huge.
the Wolves actually got the 8th seed, and that's why they have 2 chances now.
Yeah,
and they've won 66% of their games without Rudy Gobert this season.
I mean, hey, listen, that is a fractured kind of locker room situation. Also, I just do feel like they probably play better with either center in the middle rather than just both of them at the same time.
Okay,
because Towns also was able to go off. The McDaniels aspect we can't really overshadow here.
No,
I mean,
man.
Like he's been a really pesky defensive player, right? Like I don't know about Canada for defensive player of the year.
Sure, but they've been campaigning for him. Like he's been in that conversation.
He's this year's Matisse Thybulle.
Okay.
Anyway, with better offense, but like I do feel like why did he punch a wall? Like he picked up 2 personal fouls and he got in foul trouble and he punched the wall.
Yeah,
like,
there's a video.
We gotta
footage
chill.
of him.
Like
it's
game 82. Like the focus has to be there.
So Gobert threw a punch. Jaden McDaniels threw a punch, and now they're down 2 starters. They didn't even fight anybody else but themselves in a wall.
Yeah.
Like, and now they're down 2 starters. Before we take the break,
the Wall and Kyle Anderson are the biggest winners of this matchup, and the Lakers obviously.
I got a good joke there with Kyle and the. Anyways, all right, couple of other news items. Just want to see if you want to react to these.
Got you.
Udonis Haslem, who Coach David Thorpe nominated as a potential candidate for the Raptors coaching job, last week. By the way, there was a fake NBA Central account that tweeted out yesterday that the Raptors were considering Udonis for player coach. Yeah, it almost got fooled by it.
Nice.
Anyways, he played his last regular season game yesterday, and the Heat gave him a rocking chair before the game.
That's nice.
Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union, a lot of people were on hand courtside to watch. He came off the bench and scored 24 points in 25 minutes, a career-high 3 threes, and finished an alley-oop as well.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on UD?
No, it's really cool. Like, again, when you think about culture, like, here's the thing. Miami's not had a great year at all, right? They've been very disappointing this year, just period. But the vibe around them is still really positive because of this sort of scenario. Yeah. Right? So, no, I mean, I'm happy for UD. This is what Game 82 is all about. I actually really like farewell games. Like, obviously Kobe had the the best one. I mean, that one is really amazing. But even like a guy like Jamal Crawford had like 50, I think, in his last game as well.
Ah, that's right.
So, no, it was great to see UD do that. I mean, him throwing down lobs, like that's impressive. I don't know any other coach in the league that be throwing down lobs.
You don't want to call Jason Jackson for 5 minutes to talk about this? Man. You're good? Oh, okay. Mikal Bridges checked in for 4 seconds of yesterday's game. Yeah. Just to keep his streak of 392 consecutive NBA games played alive.
Yeah. It's his 83rd game.
Yeah, 83rd game of the season. Yeah. Like, I don't want to be the person that's, judging other people for showing up to work for 4 seconds, but I kind of. What do you think though? Like,
no, hold on. This is a what do you think?
No, but
this is no.
But like, I don't know. I felt some way about this. I was just like, do you like this? Like when guys just are allowed to.
It's a technicality.
Yeah, like. Yeah. You know what I mean though? Like I think Drew Holiday a couple of years ago, like he like checked in on the final game just to hit like a bonus in his contract. Like they checked him out. Like
that's cool.
So you're cool with this? Checking in for 4 seconds just to keep it going.
Like, am I cool with working 4 seconons to collect a check? Absolutely.
No, but I just don't think this should count as part of the record. Am I overreacting here?
No, here's the thing. What I'm going to give him is that, first off, Game 82's across the board. Like, no one had anything. They're obviously going to the playoffs.
Sure.
So there's no reason to play him, no reason to potentially risk injury.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it was Game 83. Right? This game shouldn't even really be in the books for him. It's only because he got traded midseason and they played it.
Okay, so we're letting that slide.
I'm going to let this slide, man. Also, it's really cool that he's the only Iron Man in the league. Like,
okay.
It's impressive, man.
And lastly, a couple of coaching updates for you.
Yep.
So Steven Silas is officially gone from Houston, and
yo, by the way, that was one of those like as soon as the final buzzer sounded,
the buzzer sounded. Yeah, those scheduled tweets went flying.
Woj had a Woj alert on for himself.
Good night, Houston.
Woj said the prime candidates. Some of these you've already heard are Ime Udoka, Warriors assistant Kenny Atkinson. Frank Vogel, the mogul, and if Raptors head coach Nick Nurse becomes available, he'll be in serious consideration as well.
That's one of those you gotta like keep the job posting open, but the position's already been filled.
I think all those coaches should show up to the draft lottery on like May 15th or whatever.
Well,
and if they get Wembayama, I think those 4 should just like fight for it.
Here's
like
the thing,
Squid Game type situation.
People they'll definitely need to wait a little bit in terms of just like what the job in Houston looks like, right? Based on the lottery, as you mentioned.
Plus, they're probably going to get a meeting with James Harden with Eric Gordon on the Zoom.
Did you see James Harden was working out in Houston the other day, like in the Toyota
really? What?
I'm pretty sure I saw this.
What?
Hold on. Let me just confirm this.
This is like when Goran Dragic started working out with the Heat while he was with the Raptors. As you're looking it up, Dwayne Casey also...
Oh, yeah, he really did that to us, eh?
Dwayne Casey also announced he's moving to the front office with the Pistons. So they'll be in the market for a head coach. And as you mentioned last week, Adrian Griffin is one of the candidates that's being mentioned. Did you confirm James Harden's workout?
Yeah, no, I'm seeing this tweet.
Was he doing one-legged threes?
James Harden training at Toyota Center the weekend before the Sixers start the playoffs.
That's amazing, man.
That's wild.
No, all I'm saying is a lot of these guys have a week off this week. They've got a whole week off. So
they chose to go there, huh?
Maybe it's time for an early Cancun trip before the playoffs.
Yeah.
Anyways, that kind of wraps up the regular season. And when we come back, we'll talk to Steph about Bulls Raptors.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if more head coaching vacancies pop up just because of the parity around the league. But anyway, we are going to take that break. I've been your host, Willow, and you've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. On the other side, we will preview Raptors-Bulls. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Liu. We are joined on the line by Steph No of the Sporting News to look at the play-in game between the Raptors and the Chicago Bulls. The history of this matchup real quickly for this season. November 6th, the Raptors won 113-104. Pascal was out for that one, but Zach LaVine was also out for that one. Fred goes for 30 and 11, and the Raptors win. The next night, the Raptors play again in Chicago this time, and they lose 111-97. Zach LaVine returns. He drops 30. Fred has 27, but no one else was really cooking that day for Toronto. And then most recently, they played shortly after the trade deadline was over. February 28th, the Raptors won 104-98. Fred had only 2 points in that one, but was good at the playmaking aspect. But Scotty definitely took over in the fourth quarter. And DeRozan and LaVine were fairly quiet, having 13 and 17 points each as the Raptors won in that matchup. So we have Steph here to preview this series. Steph, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a little bit disappointed that you guys are only settling for my beautiful voice today. I actually spent some time doing up my Korean hair, which, if you know, for Korean people takes forever. And I also put a nice shirt on over my basketball shorts. So that's a little bit of a disappointment, but
Don't
you
worry.
guys can ask away here.
We'll get this set up for Asian Heritage Month coming soon. We'll make that happen. No, Steph,
Every month is Asian Heritage
before I
Month on this
pass
show.
it off to Will to talk actual basketball, I think being the Raptor show, with the Bulls, obviously playing on Wednesday, Chicago finishing 40 and 42. What's like your kind of 2-minute summary for people who might not have followed the Bulls, game to game this season in terms of how their season has gone and how they ended up in this spot?
Well, picture if Toronto was actually located in Chicago and all of your players played for our team. And that's essentially what happened with the Bulls. I think both the Bulls and the Raptors they came into the season with pretty high expectations. And I think both fan bases, there have been high and low points in the season for sure, where, there have been enjoyable moments. But for the most part, it's been pretty frustrating. The Bulls were in first place for a lot of last year until basically the All-Star break. For them to squeak into the playoffs, they're probably going to try to spin it in some kind of way as progress, but for the fan base, it's considered pretty much an abject failure this season.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
wow.
great, man.
That's,
We're trying to spend, up until Wednesday to drum up excitement for Wednesday's game. So you're of no help right now, Steph. Come on, man.
I follow you guys on Twitter, so I saw a tweet from one of you saying why are we even playing this game? So
That was
don't try to
Alex.
spin this
That
back
was
on
Oh,
Alex.
me.
my bad,
That was
my bad,
Alex.
my
That
bad,
was
my bad,
Alex.
my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the voice
Well,
of reason.
to be fair, they were coming off that horrible loss to Boston on Friday,
Yeah.
and it
Well, like
seemed
I
like
said,
it seemed like they didn't want to play. So,
Yeah, there have been good moments in both of these team seasons, though. I followed the
Mhm.
Raptors decently closely. So, it's just the lows have been so low, but I think this is going to be a really good game because the teams are so evenly matched.
Yeah. No, I believe the last time we called you up, you had written a story about Christian Coloco, and this is early in the season. I think this is actually November 7th, if I had to guess, just because that game, Coloco caught a whole bunch of lobs, was pretty impactful on defense. And yeah, as you mentioned, this will be fairly close, just based on sort of stylistically. Let's start with sort of the star players and sort of go from there, right? So obviously on the Bulls side, the Raptors are going to be looking to stop DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine from operating. DeMar, obviously everyone in Toronto knows about. Zach overcame a knee injury in the offseason and started the season slowly, but he's really been on a tear. I'm seeing the last 30 games that he's played to end the season. He's shooting 52% from the field and 37% from three, getting to the foul line 6 times per game, and he's scoring 27 points per game in that stretch. So obviously he's been on a heater to end the season. How do you think the Raptors will approach guarding DeMar and guarding Zach?
So I went back and rewatched all 3 of these games, and the first game, the Bulls did not have Zach LaVine. So the Raptors' game plan was really just to load up everybody on DeMar every single time he touched it. They actually played a little bit of box and one. So they might break that out again, but in the second game too, they kept that pressure on DeMar and kind of lived with Zach being single teamed for part of those possessions. So I think he's going to be the real focus of what the Raptors are trying to take away.
Mhm.
That's not to say they're not going to double team Levine as well, because they probably will. And their general strategy there is just going to be to try to get those guys to pass the ball off, because the Bulls like the Raptors just don't have very good shooting around their star players.
Mhm.
So you can leave those guys open and you're not going to get punished. Yeah, so that's what I would expect to happen.
Yeah, and no, I totally agree. I mean, the Raptors have always shown a lot of attention towards DeMar. I think it's fairly obvious, like, OG is gonna take the primary bulk of that matchup. In the 3 games that we've seen, the 2 of them play each other, OG has been the primary defender against DeMar DeRozan. He's done a good job of limiting his attempts. What would you say in terms of his individual defense, having rewatched these games? How much of that is his own individual defense versus how much of that is the Raptors bringing a crowd and forcing a guy like DeMar, who obviously will make the right pass if the second defender comes over? How much of that is sort of OG's defense? How much of that is Nick's scheme?
Well, the thing about DeRozan is in order to play him really well, I don't think you have to be an OG type of, elite athletic skills and all this stuff. The most important thing is you need to stay at home on his pump fakes. I mean, you guys know this
Right.
from
Yeah.
watching
Of
him so
course.
much. So, as far as that goes, OG has done a pretty good job of that. I mean, I don't think DeMar, without looking at it, he hasn't shot an insane amount of free throws in any of these games. But like the main reason why DeMar's been so quiet in all these games is just like I said. I mean, they're bringing 2 or 3 bodies every single time he touches it. Every time he breaks the three-point line,
Hmm.
basically, even if he doesn't get a ball screen, they're just sending an extra person at him. Every time he catches in the post, they're sending a hard double. So he can't really do any. I mean, like, he's not a selfish player. If he gets 2 or 3 guys, he knows somebody else is open, so he's gonna swing the ball, try to set up a shot for another teammate. So, I mean, OG has done a fine job, but I think mostly it's a scheme-based thing, not like him doing anything, extraordinary.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, the point about Levine, so the Raptors have put Fred on Levine a lot. I'm curious in terms of will they do that in this must-win play-in game scenario, because I do feel like on paper, that doesn't feel like the best potential matchup. Like, who do you think will ultimately guard Levine at least to start the game when the Raptors play Chicago? And is it going to be Fred?
I think it'll probably be Van Vliet. Like, he's done a fine job. The thing about Zach is like, it really doesn't matter who you put on him. Like, he's gonna
Okay,
find a way to get to the rim anyway.
right, right.
And the Raptors have played in the first 2 games, they played a decent amount of zone. In the 3rd
Mhm.
game, I didn't see it as much. But again, like, it's not really a matter of individual matchups. It's just load up on those 2 guys. Alex Caruso is gonna get the ball a ton. Like, they didn't guard Caruso at
Oh
all.
yeah,
Like,
there was
they
one game
they
where I think
weren't
he went
within 15 feet of
1 for 11.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the same thing with, Pat Bev. Both of those guys start for the Bulls. So you have 2 guys
right.
who, you are basically completely leaving open and just staying in the paint, waiting on DeMar and Zach. So those 2 guys are gonna have to find a way to punish the Raptors, or else as good as DeMar and Zach are, they can't really beat a defense when, there's just 2 guys waiting for them on every drive.
Yeah, for sure, and I'm sure that's what the Raptors are banking on. Um, on the other side, how have the Bulls approached guarding Pascal? Which I believe Pascal only played 1 of the 3 games against Chicago. So I guess this is really just based off a 1 game sample. But how have the Raptors, how have the Bulls been able to guard Demar or Pascal, and also how do you think the Bulls will potentially adjust to the way they cover Pascal Siakam?
That's a really interesting matchup because the Raptors are so long and the Bulls have a pretty small starting lineup. So, like I said, they've been starting Pat Bev and Caruso alongside their big 3 of DeRozan, Levine, and Vucevic. So what that means is Caruso has to guard a lot of power forwards.
Right.
He was on Pascal in that 3rd game, the only game that Pascal played. And if you look at Pascal's box score, I mean, it's just so, but that does not at all tell the story of how impactful he was in that game because
Okay.
he was driving a lot, kicking out to 3-point shooters. He was basically grabbing the attention of 2 or 3 Bulls defenders, swinging it around, and then getting teammates open shots.
Mm,
Uh, Caruso just doesn't have the size, so Pascal was backing him down a lot.
right.
They were setting up these post ups for Pascal where Caruso just had to foul him or Pat Bev had to foul him. That's Billy Donovan said today actually that he might change the starting lineup and put
Mm,
Patrick Williams, who is a lot bigger and did a much better job on Siakam. But the downside to that is, the Bulls have been a top 5 defense this season just because of how chaotic they are, how many turnovers they force. Caruso is the driver of that, and if you take him out of the starting lineup, put Patrick Williams in instead. Patrick Williams is not that kind of event generator where he's going to get a ton of steals. He's solid, but
mm,
the Bulls are going to have to win the possession battle, and basically the only way they can do that is if Caruso and Pat Bev go nuts. So there's definitely a downside there. Yeah, I would think that Billy is probably just going to stick with Caruso.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm curious too because it's like it was interesting because the first two times that the two teams played, Fred was such a big factor, and I think that scoring wise, he went from like scoring 30 in the first two games to like scoring two the third time they played. However, I think he was still able to impact the game by playing pick and roll with Jakob, right? And a lot of that has to do with Yak's ability to finish in the pick and roll, which is obviously better than what Christian Koloko was doing, and also what was better than Precious Achiuwa at the center spot when he played there. Um, how do you think? I guess the secondary Raptors star in this situation would be sort of like that middle pick and roll. Just sort of a combination between Fred and Yak. How do you think the Bulls will approach guarding them there? And I also saw that you wrote a whole piece about Jakob Poeltl's ability to impact the series. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you can kind of throw out the first two games that these teams played just because the complexion of the Raptors changed so much once they got Pirtle. I mean,
Fair.
they're a much, much better team. In the first game that Pirtle played against them, like you said, it was not that long after the trade deadline. So he only played 26 minutes in that game.
Hmm.
Um, and Van Vliet in that third game, I think you mentioned he only had 2 points, and that was by design. The Bulls defense that has been so good, they load up on these ball handlers and they kind of let the roll man. They live with that guy having a little bit of space and being able to create on these 4-on-3s. So Pirtle is that's one of his strengths, even in San Antonio. Going back to San Antonio when they didn't have that much offensive talent there, they let him run a lot of stuff. He
Yeah.
has good decision making, and I mean, you guys know this from watching him so much. Like he's got great touch when he gets near the basket. So like that's kind of a problem for the Bulls given how they like to play and how they give those centers an opportunity to have more responsibility. That works when you have unskilled centers, but when you have someone like Pirtle,
Hmm.
that can really burn them. And they got destroyed in the minutes that Pirtle was on the floor in that third game. They just kept kind of close by winning the minutes he was sitting. So if he plays more, I mean, I looked at the spread of this game. Like the Raptors are 5 point favorites. I think a large part of that is home court advantage, and the
Hmm.
other part is just that yeah, Pirtle's probably going to play more.
Yeah, and look, he's. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those games where both coaches adjust their defense coming out at like, halftime. Obviously, depending on sort of how the first half goes, right? Because I definitely could see, for example, as you outlined, like the Bulls bring a lot of attention to the ball handler. They'll have Vucevic, who's not the quickest player, come up to the level of the screen a lot of the times. And of course, that really does require him to leave the paint. Like, this is not a team that plays that much drop with him intentionally. But then again, based on how Jakob Poeltl is hurting them in the first half in the pick and roll, they might adjust that at halftime. And that's where the Raptors are going to need both ends of that pick and roll, both Fred's pull-up three-point shooting or pull-up jump shooting to really be a factor, in addition to Yak being able to roll and get into those spaces. But as you mentioned, the possession battle is going to be huge. I think looking at this matchup, I mean, the Raptors they need to win the offensive rebounding edge. And I'm curious in terms of like what kind of adjustments Chicago could potentially prepare in that sense. Obviously, you could say everyone's going to have to play harder, which hopefully for a one-game play-in, like everyone will already be playing at max level. But are there any sort of tactical adjustments that the Bulls can make to sort of limit the Raptors on the offensive glass, which is something that the Raptors typically win regardless of their opponent?
Yeah, Billy Donovan was actually asked about that again today, and what he said was, that's part of the impetus for maybe starting Patrick Williams, who does have some more size,
Hmm.
but is kind of a terrible rebounder,
Okay.
even though he is bigger. So Caruso's a pretty decent rebounder for a guard. Like
Yeah.
he'll go in there and crash. Billy Donovan's adjustment, if you will, was that he just thought the guys had to try harder. I don't think that's.
Got you.
I don't love that because
That doesn't sound like an answer. That just sounds like the problem.
yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
the Raptors have played teams that have tried really hard, but there's just so much size on that front line.
sure.
So I don't think it's a matter of effort. I think you just need to have bigger bodies out there. Like Drummond is, a
Mhm.
historically great defensive rebounder. Maybe he'll play a little bit more, but he has a lot of defensive limitations. So I don't think there's a great answer there. I think you're right that they're probably just going to get out rebounded again.
Right. And I do wonder if Chicago's going to attack the offensive glass themselves. Because as you mentioned, if the Raptors are going to be sending two guys at DeMar, sending two guys at Zach, and of course, depending on how the rotations are, let's say like Fred ends up on Vucevic, obviously you're going to send a second defender to sort of like help out in the post as well. Vucevic can definitely do damage there. Um, that probably does leave a lot of guys open on the wing. And of course, like it's not just guys can knock down open threes, which ideally is what would happen for Chicago. But those guys like a Caruso, for example, I feel like he's always very good at crashing from, the corners, and especially if he's getting left open there because there's no one to box him out. So, the possession battle is going to be really important in this game because, again, both teams are not really good at, hitting threes. I do wonder, maybe it comes down to the bench potentially, and that's always where I get very worried about Toronto is when they have to sort of go to their second unit. Their starting five has been pretty good, especially with Yak in the middle there. I'm not as worried about that, but off the bench, who should we look for on Chicago's side in terms of they could be an X factor off the bench?
Oh, on Chicago, man, that's I guess Kobe White. Like Kobe White takes a ton of threes.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, their bench has been really, really bad. Like
Mm,
Dragic was playing a ton of minutes for them, and he's
right.
just gone now. He was
Yep.
so bad that he's just gone. You guys know about Dragic too,
No,
but I
we
guess
know.
yeah, yeah. Kobe White. He's kind of a microwave scorer. So in a game where points are going to be so hard to come by, he could easily go like 5 or 6 from 3 and swing the game or something
Sure,
like that.
sure. That's it though. Wow. Okay. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be as worried because it does feel like, I don't know what your sense is, but it does feel like the Raptors have advantages that they can press because I feel like even other ways, like, they could, for example, not that I would necessarily look to feature OG that much, depending on sort of how he's going, but, I could see OG having a size mismatch. They play him in the post fair bit. Scotty, we haven't even talked about him. He's sort of been sort of quiet in this matchup, but we also saw him have a really strong fourth quarter in the game they most recently played on February 28th. Like, there are size advantages to play through those guys as well. So, to me, I mean, it definitely seems to be favoring Toronto, but of course, anything can happen in a one-game series. Steph, what's your initial feeling on this heading into this crucial 9-8 play-in game?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Raptors. I think they're probably going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the starters are probably going to play pretty evenly, and like you said, it's going to come to the bench. Like I was talking about how bad the Bulls bench is. Like the Raptors
I
bench
was gonna
hasn't
say
been very
that's
good.
yeah.
When I was watching these games, like especially Precious's minutes,
Mm,
I was so high on Precious coming into the year, but
right.
he hasn't had it, and
Why do you think that
he
is?
got killed in his minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm curious as from an outsider's perspective watching Precious, because he has very high moments, as you mentioned. That's the reason for the enthusiasm. What do you feel like doesn't really pan out for him when he has these bad games?
I feel like he's just not really putting everything together, like
Mm,
he might contribute in one area or two areas, but as far as just like an overall, chipping in different parts, like if his shot isn't falling, like can he help you on those nights? And the answer kind of has been no.
right.
So, good role players, they just find ways to help their team. And he hasn't really seemed to be able to do that this year.
Fair. That's fair. Okay, Steph. Before we let you go, because we have about a minute here, can we press you for a prediction if this is something that you're comfortable with?
I predict that Raptors fans and Bulls fans are gonna have to take a shower after watching this game because it's gonna be grimy.
Oh, that's every game for us, man. You know that.
Yeah, they both averaged 104 points this season, and average in the NBA is like 115, just to give you a frame of reference.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah,
mean,
fair.
it's gonna be a rock fight. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah.
It's gonna be like both teams are gonna go 10 for 40 from 3,
Mm, mm,
and whichever. I feel like a lot. The Bulls are definitely underdogs, but the fact that both of these teams just suck so much at shooting threes, there's going to be more variance, I think. Like
right.
if one of these teams just gets really hot, they're going to win. Um, yeah, but I'll say, I don't know, 97-94 Raptors.
All right.
I
Well,
think it's going to be really close.
I look forward to chewing my fingernails off for a playing game. Steph, no, the Sporting News. Make sure you find all his stuff. I think the best way to find you is probably just on Twitter, right? At Steph, NOH. And, there's a lot of great content that you do, not just with the Bulls, but across the league. So definitely give Steph a follow. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I'm terminally online, so any way you try to find me online, I'll probably see it.
Bro, I saw you even on Reddit, so you're there. You
I'm
can
in
find
those
Steph's
Reddit
content,
streets.
man.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Steph. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
NBA announced some details about the in-season tournament as part of the new CBA agreement. Do we have time for that?
Yeah, sorry, we're out of time once again. We're not going to do CBA talk on this show ever. That does it for us today. I've been your host, Willow, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Thanks once again to Steph No, producer and co-host Alex Wong, and board producer Derek Brandale and Jennifer Rona for helping with the YouTube stream. We will be back to talk more about Raptors-Bulls tomorrow.